It's the Innovation Podcast with Mark Reed Edwards and Garnett Harriman. Let's start the show.
Hi, it's Mark. We're back for part 2 of our chat with Larry Frank, president of LA Trade Tech College. In this part, we discuss the similarity in nomenclature between LA Trade Tech College and incubators and accelerators in the early stage venture world. Larry also shares what it means to train students for the workforce, plus a lot more about the role of community colleges.
I'm struck by, and I'm wondering, so this is sort of a two-part question, but I'm struck by the similarity in nomenclature between what you just described as your pathway strategy and the structure and framework of that. I'm struck by the similarity between that and essentially incubators and accelerators and sort of entrepreneurial training programs of all sorts in my world, right? In the early stage venture world and the VC world. It may or may not have been so obvious when you first started doing this reformation, but it's got to, the similarities can't be lost on you now, right? Where these things are so well known and so mainstream now as far as the incubator accelerator type stuff. Has that ever been commented on, or is that something that you guys did deliberately, that you were essentially mirroring these other trends happening in the work world, or is it just serendipity? Or
so for my world in the city, working with Department of Labor funds, and then honestly, my work in the community colleges focused on jobs and careers. So much of our focus was trying to figure out how the good jobs become available to our students. And that work, is work that honestly we've had to face the fact that 2%, of all jobs are moving their way over to the gig economy every year right now. And if we do not have the same focus, right, on how it is we connect up to helping our students start, their own businesses, to start, their own innovations, we are going to, at some point, no longer be the go-to institution that we know we have to be for our community here and for Los Angeles. So much is parallel in a place like Los Angeles and in South LA. It's extremely important, the incubation world and the small business, startup world, for those people without the right to work, right? Which is a huge portion of Los Angeles. So the small business startups, we have a bunch of incubation that we do with the food truck, world. We do a bunch of, summits with the whole food truck industry here at Trade Tech to help connect up to our culinary arts program and our business programs that are here. So there's a whole world of, even developing our own incubation capacity here at the campus that's become
Absolutely.
And we too have seen the same sort of processes and need for additional expertise in our ability to do the small business entrepreneurship efforts as a core competency here of this college, which really is what brought, me and us into the conversations with you, Garnett, and kind of trying to make sense of how we move forward.
And I was, since our first meeting, just, by way of giving folks a little flavor of some of our previous contact, I was completely struck by the way that you move back and forth between two worlds that are often very separate. The sort of real world of businesses and startups and entrepreneurship, and then academia and government. A lot of times those worlds don't touch in ways that are super efficient for, folks like, students. So it sounds like LA Trade Tech is definitely innovating as far as training students for the workforce. And you have a unique background seeing all sides of that. But help the audience understand what it means exactly to train students for the workforce, and exactly how successful are you at it? What kind of metrics do you use to judge your success?
Yeah. So the metrics are ones that are traditional, that don't necessarily capture the folks going into their own business. Those metrics are not yet captured in any way by our state chancellor's office. But what they do capture, right, are the biggest ones are completions, right? So completions being a certificate of 18 units or more. So it's an industry-based certificate. It's the individuals that are getting their associate degrees, right? There's another one that's been established, which is an associate degree for transfer. So it's an associate degree that aligns with the Cal State and UC system that allows them to transfer to the Cal State and UC system, right? And then there's the transfers with or without the associate degrees that are into the public and private sector colleges. Those are the primary ways in which it's measured, but they're now under our new state student success funding formula. They're also measuring, which traditionally has always been about butts in the seats or enrollment. They're also doing an equity measure, so giving funding based on how many students are eligible and receiving Pell and the Board of Governors fee waiver. They're also looking at success measures. So right now, 10% of our funding comes from these certificates, degrees, transfers, but also measures, how many people are actually working in their field after graduation. And then also measuring how many people are getting the living wage after their graduation within 2 years. So those are
I like the living wage one. That's really interesting.
Those are measures that we actually are now going to be getting funded for with the implementation of this new student success funding formula. So at the moment, 70% still based on enrollment, 20% based on equity, 10% based on success, which is supposed to go eventually up to 60% enrollment, 20% equity, 20% success. So it's a lot of innovation is happening statewide. The guided pathways is now embraced statewide. And then this Assembly Bill 705, which is getting rid of all remedial math and English and having everybody go directly into college level math and English, and making stats as a alternative pathway for our students statewide, is with, all the innovations that happen with embedded tutoring, with co-requisites, that happen with the flipped classrooms and the hybrid teaching, and all those things are now part of it. So there is a huge amount of innovation that's coming statewide in California right now.
So I recently learned that there's some sort of trade association. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's basically a trade association of community colleges from around the country. I'm kind of curious whether you guys participate, well, LA Trade Tech participates at that level, and whether or not you see these innovations being emulated and being replicated, because it seems like, things are working at LA Trade Tech that, lots of cities around the country are sort of struggling to crack the same nut. But what's your experience with emulation and replication and the sharing of best practices, like you seem to be describing in your innovation programs?
So there is great innovation happening everywhere, and I'm not going to claim the mantle that we're the only ones innovating. There's spectacular work happening out in Florida, in North Carolina, in New York City, and there are community colleges all over this country that are really the kind of the petri dish for innovation in the community college world. And we are learning from them. They are learning from us. In California, there's great opportunity for innovation. The Community College League of California sponsors a lot of this work. There is a group of community colleges that happened out of the AAC at the national level to do guided pathways work. People came together to do the California 20 guided pathways campuses, helping us all sort of move forward in terms of our best practices on guided pathways. So we're a part of that. We had to apply to be part of that consortium of colleges. So a lot of the work is happening on multiple fronts. And the thing that's important about guided pathways, it's not just a single kind of reform. It's a way of kind of taking reform to scale at your college. And I think it's a chance for us to look at all of the metrics. It's very, very heavy on data. Look at it moving all the metrics on all fronts. But, the metric that, I keep on coming back to And I kind of feel like if trade tech can't figure this out, I'm not sure who can, which is how do we make sure that we care about making sure that our students that are training for the good jobs actually get the good jobs, right? And that work is not traditionally been funded. In California, they are now funding some of that work with strong workforce dollars that allow us to really build the pipelines to the world of work and the complex, relationships and entry points that even creating the workforce development policies that allow for the leveraged openings of markets that have largely been closed to students from the inner city.
So, several years ago, I talked to the dean of South Texas College, which was on the vanguard, at least back then in 2012 or so, in offering, as a community college, bachelor's degrees. They offer a Bachelor of Applied Technology and a Bachelor of Applied Science.
Yeah.
Very focused degrees. Is that something that you're in the mix on? Is that something on your roadmap?
So in California, they had a assembly bill that created the opportunity for every district to apply for a bachelor's degree, but only one application could come forward from each district. So there's an example of there being a disadvantage to being part of a large district.
Sure.
We actually combined 3 colleges to do one from our advanced transportation manufacturing pathway, to do one in transportation technology and as a bachelor's. And ultimately, the 3 colleges couldn't agree on something, so we got lost out locally to a West LA college in our system that has been incredibly successful. We're the dental technician bachelor's. So, in the world of community colleges, so at West LA College, they are for $12,000 able to help a student, much of which is paid for by Board of Governors waivers and Pell Grants, to be able to get their degree as a dental tech. And that same degree at USC would cost somebody $150,000. And one of the rules in California is that if it's offered by the public system, UC or Cal States, that we could not offer it. They don't allow us to do it in nursing, even though all of our campuses have nursing, and they're all associate degrees, and so many, due to hospital accreditation, or the associate degree registered nursing opportunity is becoming less and less attractive, and doing a bachelor's in that area would be such a brilliant thing to do, but the legislation does not allow us to do that in terms of the competition between the 3 systems, the community colleges, the Cal States, and the research institutions, the UCs. But there's talk about another run that would allow each district to put a second application in place. But they are potentially critical innovations that allow kind of an updating of the master plan that saw community colleges as, preparation, junior colleges in a sense, to allowing them to mature.
Larry, we're part of what's fun about this ongoing conversation we have with so many luminaries like yourself is we get to talk about the future of work in relation to each guest's personal platform or pulpit or what have you. And I'm super curious, just looking at all of the things that you've done with workforce development, with educational reform and innovation, with your knowledge of how to get kids into high-paying jobs that can help ensure their future success. I'm curious what you think, or maybe what your contact thus far has been with anything to do with this notion of universal basic income. A few different cities around California, Stockton, Oakland, San Francisco, that are experimenting. I'm curious if you've come across it, or what your thoughts are on it, or anything that you care to comment on.
So, the Los Angeles experience, there's a lot of talk about it. I'd say some of the conversation about that gets to the world of co-ops. I think co-ops is getting kind of a second look right now. We actually teach co-ops, through our community planning side of our campus. And obviously the work that happens around wages, minimum wage, living wage work, has some connection to it. I think we're all sort of going to be watching to see how the Stockton piece works out. It's a very nascent experiment, and it's the most developed experiment. It's just focused on some of the folks that are most in need, and it's at a very minimal level, but it's still something that I think is something that's rigorous enough for us to be able to study. So we're really interested to see how that one does play out. We do, kind of related a little bit to it, we do a whole lot of hard work around those individuals hardest to place to be able to create some equity in this range. So, the work with the homeless community, there is something that kind of looks and feels a little bit like that by prioritizing lived experience for some of the entry-level opportunities in case management and outreach. So people that have themselves been homeless are actually prioritized into some opportunities. Those that are themselves had drug problems that they've been able to overcome, have been in custody and have been able to kind of move to the next stage of their lives. Those are lived experiences that we kind of look at to see if there's a way for us to do some hard equity work around this. But, the thing that, a person like I who did spend some real time in the labor movement trying to figure out how to turn bad jobs into good jobs, obviously the part of the labor movement that's surviving is the public sector, which is one that doesn't have as much of a kind of a public support as really the low wage jobs, getting the chance to be moved from the low wage industry to ones that can be a living wage job. So, the future of work is something that everybody needs to be looking at right now. And, there are whole sectors that could, be automated. I'd say more and more as you look at it, it's portions of people's jobs being automated is the more likely way in which this is going to develop.
I think that's right.
Yeah. At Trade, we kind of focus on jobs that are not going to be automated as much as possible. Ones where there is individual decision making that takes place throughout the course of every single part of that job. The maintenance side of the world of the trades is something that we specialize in. We do our pathway. Our largest pathway with 3,600 students is our construction, maintenance, and utilities pathway. And maintenance is some of the best opportunities, secure opportunities that are out there in the world of work. So we kind of keep our eyes.
Is that pathway separate from transportation? Because I thought transportation was another one of your big ones, but.
So our second largest pathway is advanced transportation manufacturing. Manufacturing is the one.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
Really hard to really see a broad future for it as much as we all want to see that. There's some pieces of it that are, still very much here. Certainly food processing is big in Los Angeles, and we still probably have about 45,000 here, in the garment industry that are in the manufacturing side. But it's hard to see how those are the future of, family maintaining, careers. But yeah, advanced transportation, that's a big piece. But the biggest pieces of it are ones that are relationship with Metro, the largest, best funded transit agency in the country. We run Metro University. We run their joint apprenticeship committee between ATU 1277 and Metro. We work really hard with WinLA, their current program around opportunities. We do a lot of curriculum development with them. And we've, our district, we just voted 8 of our colleges as to whether or not we're going to create a fee structure for all of our students, where each of them will pay $3.25 per month and get a free transit pass for all of Metro's train, bus, and 6 other transit agencies. So that just passed by a 92% yes vote of all of our students last Tuesday.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yep. But that's quite an exciting opportunity to train the next generation of riders in Los Angeles.
That is.
Yeah.
Next time, we conclude our discussion with Larry as we talk about the connection between workforce development and economic development, the kinds of training partnerships that LATTC has forged, and a look into the future. So stay with us.
Thanks for joining Garnett and Mark on the Innovation Podcast. Visit innovationpodcast.co to subscribe and listen to other episodes.